Are you struggling to understand questions related to Napoleon domestic policy? If so, please join the intellect through this video, as one of my students was also representing it, and later on I've introduced the better way and an expansion way or a good method to evaluate this question. Please enjoy.
What are you saying? Okay. Question yangu kuti a mixture of egalitarian and autocratic principles. How accurate is this description of Napoleon's rule in France up to 1850? So market terms zedu egalitarian and autocratic, and the egalitarian refers to something that is characterized by social equality or equality of all people, and autocratic refers to something that is authoritarian or arbitrary. So the question demands candidates to reveal that Napoleon's domestic policies were both egalitarian and autocratic. So egalitarian togona kuti his domestic policies were beneficial, and the autocratic they were non-beneficial. So pa egalitarian kutomna point yakanzi 1802 Legion of Honor, at which this benefited the French people, because pa 18 League of Honor ndopaka itwayenzi career open to talent, at which people were appointed, were recruited into army, into politics, and also my jobs according to their talent, not according to their social background or classes. And then so this shows that his domestic policies were egalitarian, since the Legion of Honor benefited the French people, and many people were benefited, since according to the revolutionary ideas these people wanted equality. And then per tax system, taxation was made uniform, at which everyone was supposed to pay tax, and its collection was made was effective, at which everyone was supposed to pay tax, and this benefited the French people, since according to the revolutionary ideas they wanted equality in taxation, at which all classes were paying taxes. So this shows that his domestic policies were egalitarian. And the financial reforms, Napoleon introduced the Bank of France, at which my businessmen, those of middle class, my bourgeoisie, were given loans. So this shows that Napoleon's domestic policies were egalitarian, since he introduced the Bank of France, at which he was supporting the middle class members. And then per transport system, he introduced transport system, at which the movement of goods were now easy to carry, to move goods from other, and also to carry people. And the beautification of Paris was according to the introduction of my public works, at which Napoleon introduced the public works, at which there was the construction of roads, bridges, censorship. That was when Napoleon banned freedom of expression, because he believed that if people had freedom of expression, some chaos and disorder in the state. So he banned freedom of expression through press censorship. And later culture was introduced, abolishwa ne mamwe ma revolutionary reintroduced, and this shows that he was authoritarian. Since he introduced, he rewind back the clock back to pre-1789, and this shows that Napoleon's domestic policies were authoritarian, and the removal of political parties shows that Napoleon's domestic policies were authoritarian, since Napoleon wanted to centralize his government so that no ruler for long, and the education system introduced by Napoleon was authoritarian due to the fact that he banned the study of philosophy and research, which this learning of this subject were going to expose him, and we're going to build my critical thinking in the students. So the banning of this subject so that he was authoritarian, and the girls were forbidden from going to school, and this shows that his domestic policies were authoritarian, and the centralization of government shows that Napoleon's domestic policies were authoritarian. How? This is shown by Napoleon appointing himself as the Emperor of France, and as he also appointed himself as the first consul. Parker approached Kwana Abbasias, and then he was authoritarian, and his local election shows that he was authoritarian, because per local election Napoleon was the one who appoints the prefects and sub-prefects of my departments, and so vanhu vaizoselekta mazita through my names anenge achidzwa naNapoleon, and this shows that Napoleon's domestic policies were authoritarian. Ndapedza. Any questions?
Ugo authoritarian ugo akaisa inonzi chii concord akasaina concordat uko akaisa matariffs, protective tariffs. Vamos zvawandisa
apo moisa banning yemastrikes ku-authoritarian.
live in mass
conscription,
trial by jury.
uvoisa inonzi chii code Napoleon uko
amboitaura pamafinancial.
waita basa. Pana apa inini problem yangu yandaita nemimi yese yamusinotaura. Thanks akunana. So guys, is why zvikuitika pana. Question magona mataura kuti the question mapama principles. Andika. So I've explained to you kuti kana question ikauya iri ya Napoleon, ma domestic policies, when you are given domestic policies, what you must do is you must pinpoint or highlight kuti tine anonzi ma political reforms. Andika tonyora machifuti ma-social power, ma-economic power. Tauranaka. So nana question ya Napoleon ikauya hatingoiseunze kungoinamira mapoints handiti. Question ikauya unofana kugrupa. Whenever question yauya, our question demands us to review how the principles of Napoleon were characterized by equality and at the same time were characterized by autocratic rulership. So in your point, in your political issues, the candidate was supposed to review events or reforms, kubuditsa kuti kuma political reforms Napoleon aidzvinyirira at the same time achitira vanhu zvinhu zvakaita zvakanaka. However, Napoleon aingodzvinyirira chete, hapana paakatira vanhu zvinhu zvakaita zvakanaka. Saka kana pakanzi a mixture of egalitarian and autocratic, we are now revealing kuti Napoleon paaiva egalitarian pacho ndepapi. Andika aita zvese zvekutaurwa kuti domestic policy aNapoleon anga ane zvese kudzvinyirira nekuita zvinhu zvakaita zvakanaka. Saka uri kufanira kutibuditsira kuti no, kwaaigona pacho Napoleon ndepapi. But isusu in this case, a good candidate anofanira kushandisa inonzi a B vertical approach. Vamwe vanoiti block system. Andika, for instance, rega ndiite ndichikubatsira ndichidai. For revision sake, both my points munenge munawo. Panapa handiti kuma political factors, political. Andika, tine nyaya dzipi shudza? Kuma politics. Aku egalitarian. Tine nawo ye-voting system. Ukunzwa? Right, dangopa 2 points for instance. Toita nawo yechi ku-political. Pre-censorship. Ari 2. Ukunzwa ere nani? Toda kubatsirana panapa. Zvatiri kuda kuita panapa ndezvekudzidzisana munhu kuti tinoita sei. Mapoints aNapoleon hatingonyora achisangana. No. Iva munhu akarongeka anoratidza iwe in your introduction ufanira kuratidza kuti aya ma-political factors, aya ma-social, ma-economic. Then wadaro wobva waexplaina uchiti Napoleon in his political factors he showed that he was an egalitarian leader. How? Because Napoleon has issued the free voting system in France. Every member in France was equitable to vote, not everyone was given the freedom to vote irregardless of their class. And unlike his former predecessors, and voting system was done by payment, especially during the reign of the Directory. But Napoleon, as a good leader, everyone was allowed to vote irregardless of class, which means that he was a good leader who represented equality in the society in France in political issues. And furthermore, Napoleon issued the press censorship, where only 4 newspapers were circulating in France. And it was a good stance. Why? Because it reduces opposition. It suppressed the revolutionary ideas. And this has made French citizens to enjoy peace. Nekuti hakuna opposition, hakuna kunetsana. Unlike during the reign of the National Convention, during the reign of the Jacobins, andika takaona kuti kwakaitika reign of terror. Why? Nekuda kwema political upheavals. But during the reign of Napoleon, peace prevailed because press censorship, it suppressed my ideas evanhu vanomuka uchingotaura. Then wapedza izvozvo wapitoti wanyora mapoints ako pamwe 3-4 ari kuexplaina zvaNapoleon. Wapedza kudaro iwewe unochizouya woexplaina uchiti, however, despite the fact that Napoleon's political issues, they show that he was a good leader. However, Napoleon can be proved to be autocratic. Wapedza kunyora 4 points ezvakanaka zvaitwa naNapoleon. Wakunonyora 1 or 2 yezvaakaita zvakashata zviri kubuditsa autocratic. But hazvisi kunyorwa musame paragraph. Iri paragraph rakazvimira. Unoti wapedza unyora 4 maparagraph wozoti, however, despite that, Napoleon's rule was full of equality and was characterized by egalitarian. And Napoleon in his doings was somewhere he was an autocratic leader. Why we are saying Napoleon is an autocratic leader? Wakubudizwa Due to his pre-censorship policy, Napoleon was proving to be an autocratic leader because he suppressed freedom of expression. Individuals were not allowed to oppose the government, which means that Napoleon aidzvinyirira vanhu. Ndiwo wanyora, watonyora paragraph rako wapedza wakuti despite the political issues towards Napoleon domestic policy, we can also discuss about his economic issues. Takwenda uri kutonyora ise takwenda kuma-economic kwacho takunotsvaga kuti Napoleon economically kune nyaya yechi tine nyaya yeBank of France. Economically, Napoleon introduced the Bank of France. This proved him to be a good leader. Why? These banknotes in which he introduced all his policies akaintroduce kuti mari muFrance iflow etivewo nebanking muFrance rinobatsira vanhu richiisa mari richibatsira mafarmers. This was done to benefit everyone. Hapana munhu akambonziwa usi kushandisa mari naNapoleon. Munhu wese pamari payakagadzirwa, mabhengi paakagadzirwa, they were benefiting everyone for progress in France. So he was an egalitarian leader. And furthermore, chimwe chatotaura chakaitwa economically, Napoleon banned strikes in France. This have improved production. Because as these strikes were banned, production improved, and at the same time, zvakabva zvaita kuti France ikwanise kuva self-sufficient, ichizvimanufactura zvinhu zvayo, vanhu vachibenefit. Then wakuenda kune rimwe side wapedza kuti despite that Napoleon was an egalitarian leader in his economic policies, Napoleon can be also observed as an autocratic leader. Anika, why? Takubuditsa pakashata. The Bank of France only benefited individuals who were loyal to Napoleon. Why we are saying so? This bank was offering loans to individuals who were loyal to Napoleon only. Those who were not loyal to Napoleon were not offered loans. And saka ndopapa patozotaura zvinotaurwa nana H.L. Fisher vanoti Napoleon progress in France during his reign was not for progress but was to maintain and to secure his position in France. Why? Aida kuti iye arambe paano benefitwa but imi muchizodzoka muchimusapota. Handiti ndo manyorera atinoita ise yacho apa.